Adventure. The history of biological classification begins with Carl Linnaeus and his Systema Naturae. Later,
Okay, guys, welcome back again. This is the second lecture of our series. In this video, we'll be talking about classification, its history, how this classification started, and then how it has evolved over the period of time, and what we are using today. So, in the previous lecture, we talked about various terms used in classification systems, especially the main field, which is called biosystematics. We also talked about the difference between taxonomy and biosystematics, and what are the other terms like identification, nomenclature, that we will discuss in the future videos. Currently, we are at the classification introduction. Okay, so if you look at classification, this practice is as old as human civilization itself, because early man unknowingly used it to classify various things based on his needs and also based on the utility of those things. Okay, so in the 1700s, it was Aristotle who classified all the organisms into two kingdoms, and he named them as plants and animals. Okay, Aristotle, if you know, is the father of biology. Aristotle is the father of biology and zoology, while as Theophrastus is the father of botany. Okay, so he classified them into plants and animals based on their ability to move. The organisms which were able to move were grouped as animals, and those which couldn't, which were stationary, were classified into plants. And then in 1735, Linnaeus came, and he also gave us the scientific classification of organisms, and he gave us two kingdoms again: Vegetalia, which included plants, and Animalia, which included animals. Okay, and Linnaeus is referred to as the father of plant taxonomy. Okay, he gave us the concept of binomial nomenclature that we will be discussing. And then after Linnaeus, it was Ernest Haeckel. In 1837, he created the kingdom of Protista for unicellular organisms. In the previous classifications of Linnaeus and Aristotle, these unicellular organisms were grouped with the multicellular organisms. Okay, so there was no distinction between unicellularity and multicellularity. So Ernest Haeckel is credited with the creation of Protista for unicellular organisms, which consists of organisms like amoeba. Okay, then exactly after 100 years, Caton in 1937, okay, he proposed a division of organisms into two empires. Okay, so the two empires he created were eukaryota and prokaryota. He gave this classification based on the discovery that bacteria lack well-defined nucleus. Bacteria lack well-defined nucleus, and hence were called as prokaryotes. So we know that organisms can be prokaryotes. Okay, they can be eukaryotes. So what is a prokaryote? Pro means primitive. Pro means primitive. Okay, pro means primitive, and u means true. So prokaryotes are those organisms which lack well-defined nucleus, while eukaryotes are those organisms, the cells of which do have a true nucleus surrounded by plasma, surrounded by the membranes, double membrane, double phospholipid membrane. Okay, and then it was Copeland in 1938 and 1956. He recognized kingdom Monera. Okay, that means Caton gave us the four kingdom classification. Four kingdom classification. Once he recognized the kingdom Monera. So now we have four kingdoms. One, Plantae. Second, Animalia. Third, Protista. And Monera. Okay, so Copeland is credited with the creation of fourth kingdom known as Monera, and he placed all other eukaryotes in Protoctista. Protoctista. Okay, instead of Protista, he called them as Protoctista. Okay, and if you look at Ernest Haeckel, he created Protista, but it included both eukaryotes as well as prokaryotes. Okay, and after Copeland, after the 14 kingdom classification, then came Robert Whittaker in 1969. He gave us the 5 kingdom classification. What he did, he removed fungi from plants to a separate kingdom and called them as fungi. And he said that these fungi are so different from the Protista that they need a separate kingdom. So the 5 kingdoms then were proposed by Whittaker were Protista, Monera, Plantae, Animalia, and fungi. Okay, so fungi we know are completely distinct organisms which lack any chlorophyll, and they have this decomposition decomposition, kind of nutrition. Okay, so Robert Whittaker is credited with the five kingdom classification. And then Coral Voss, and yeah, we will be discussing this Robert Whittaker's five kingdom classification in bit detail. We'll be talking about its criteria that were used by this guy and how he classified these organisms. And then Carl Voss in 1977 he created Archaea. Archaea, he actually the group of Carl Voss said that there are some bacteria, some kind of bacteria, which were completely different from the eubacteria or true bacteria. So the bacteria, group bacteria, contained organisms which were Archaebacteria and eubacteria. Okay, so he said that these are completely different from the bacteria, and he said these are Archaebacteria, means they are primitive or old bacteria. Okay, and thus he gave the sixth kingdom classification as he added another kingdom referred to as Archaea. Okay, and Carl Voss again in 1999 his group created Archaea as a separate domain and gave us the three domain classification. Sixth kingdom was given by Carl Voss in 1977, and finally in 1990 he raised the Archaea to a separate domain, means that they deserve a complete big higher group of organisms. Okay, so this is the brief history how this classification systems have evolved. Let me give you a quick recap. Starting with Aristotle, who gave us the two kingdom classification. In 1700s, he classified organisms into plants and animals. And then in 1735, Linnaeus in Systema Naturae classified organisms into Vegetabilia and Animalia. Again, like plants and animals. And then Ernest Haeckel in 1837, he created Protista kingdom for unicellular organisms, but these Protista contain both prokaryotes and eukaryotes, which were then separated by this Caton in 1937, as he said that the bacteria lack well-defined nucleus and thus were separated from this protist. Following this, Copeland in 1938 and 1956, he recognized the kingdom Monera for bacteria and placed all other eukaryotes in Protoctista, and thus gave the four kingdom classification. And in 1969, Robert Whittaker gave us the famous five kingdom classification, where he separated fungi from from the plants and thus gave us the five kingdom classification. And in 1977, Coral Voss created Archaea kingdom and thus gave six kingdom classification. And then the same group in 1990 raised the category, raised the rank of Archaea to a domain. Now we have three domains, three domain system of classification, which are Archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Okay, so I hope you got the gist of how this classification has evolved with time, beginning with Aristotle's classification of organisms into plants and animals in 1700 to now, where we have three domain system as proposed by Carl Voss and the group. I think we will stop here. If you like my videos, if you like whatever we are talking about here, kindly do subscribe, kindly do like and share. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.